We study Aristotle's 5 canons of rhetoric, which includes invention, the discovery and crafting of arguments, arrangement, the ordering of those arguments, style, the wording we use in those arguments, memory, memorizing that arguments, presenting them fluidly, and delivery. So in 9th and 10th grade, I do a You Were There speech where the students have to research an historical event of their choosing, craft and be a participant in that event, and then craft a presentation. So they employ all of the canons of Aristotle's rhetoric. Our first presenter today will be Naomi Noble, who will tell you about a German spy during World War II.
Espionage is not easily forgiven, Gabrielle. That phrase turned over and over in my mind, and the train ride from Paris to Madrid seemed like an eternity. It was me and my hat box sitting next to me. That hat box and the tools inside would be my passport and passage into the company of one of the most powerful men in the world. It held the tools that would protect my mission and my very life. They called it Operation Hat, which is a fitting title for a milliner such as myself. That's a hat maker, for those of you less familiar with the trade. As an illegitimate daughter, orphaned in a poorhouse, I wasn't destined for much. When I was a young woman, I dreamed of wooing the crowds as a cafe singer, but ended up wooing nothing more than a string of married men who kept me on the side, but in decent company. One of those men was responsible for this hat box sitting next to me. He saw my keen eye for fashion and invested in me. However, as I rattled down the train to Madrid, I realized that hat making would not be what I was known for. Me, Gabrielle, a peacemaker, the French woman who arranged peace between the Allied forces and hit Germany in World War II. Yes, I wanted the war to end, but my motivation was so much greater than that. I wanted to make my mark in history, which was a motivation that would drive me my entire life. My père de jour was a wealthy German baron who was associated with the Nazi Germans. With subtle mention of my connections with my clientele, Winston Churchill, a wildfire ignited that would burn all the way to the top of the Nazi party. All of a sudden, I became a Nazi agent carrying peace to Winston Churchill, first to Madrid and then to England, all under the guise of giving Churchill a new hat. Out the window, the French countryside faded into the equally lovely Spanish soil. The green trees and farms rusted into crimson dirt and terracotta roofs. I was rehearsing my every interaction with the Prime Minister. How was I supposed to convince a man of such stature to stand down from a war he was already entrenched in? I was rehearsing my words, my facial expressions, my getaway plan, just in case. My mind was racing as I stepped off the train onto the platform, hatbox and luggage in tow. I was set up in a quiet little hotel, and I sat there awaiting my next step into my historic meeting with Winston Churchill. I can still hear the shrill raps on the hotel door delivering the telegram. The yellow paper seemed to shout at me. Sir Winston Churchill has fallen ill. He will no longer need your services while he is convalescing. Churchill was ill. He wouldn't need a hat. Of course not. To him it was just a hat. But to me, it was my one shot at eternal glory. And that was the end. That was the end of Operation Hat. It didn't go any further. But that was the beginning of my deepest, darkest secret. The war ended and life moved on, and my designs began to flourish. I became an international sensation, flying between Paris and New York and Milan and London, but fear was my constant companion. My motivation with working with the Nazi government was to establish my place in the world. And now that I had my place in the world, it was the one thing that threatened it. No one wanted to buy the designs of an artist who was associated with the most monstrous man on earth. I couldn't help but imagine the headlines if it was found out that I was working with the Nazi government for a fabricated peace meeting with Churchill. My prestigious reputation would not only suffer, but would rot away like the German Fuhrer himself. But I managed to guard my secret all my days. I'm an old woman now, and my life will surely pass over soon. But my legend will live on as the authoritative standard of couture fashion. My brand will grace the frames of every starlet, politician, and aspiring socialite across the road. And so now you know the secret of the abandoned French orphan who built an iconic clothing brand and almost brokered peace between Churchill and Hitler. I am Gabrielle Coco Chanel. I was asked to give a quick biography about Gabrielle Coco Chanel because it's a really fascinating story and one that many wouldn't expect. So you might be wondering what the motive was behind Operation Hat. The intention of Operation Hat was to convince Winston Churchill to stand down and thereby allowing Germany to conquer Poland and Spain. And why Coco Chanel was never found guilty of her crimes during World War II? After the war, Chanel was interrogated regarding her relationship with the Nazi Party, but she was never charged. A surprising third party stepped in and ensured that all charges were dropped. That surprising third party was none other than the British Prime Minister, Winston Churchill.